I need to give him like little ear muffs or so. Actually, birds don't have ears, do they?
No, just little holes on the side of their heads.
Ew.
Birds get real creepy once you take the cute and fluffy feathers off, and you start to see the like ancient lizards underneath that they are.
To be fair, Mexi, if you removed the skin of a human, you probably wouldn't see something very nice.
I mean, this is an agreed point, but all that makes me think of is also hairless bears. Like, no, that's kind of it is a common idea that once you remove that outer coat, most things are pretty disturbing.
Also, I'm aware that I just equated, like, feathers to skin. Alright, don't get fucking sniffy in the comments.
I was about to say, cause like, birds do have skin. Feathers are basically hair.
I'm fucking aware of what feathers are, alright? Let's do this. Alright, so each divine beast basically has a bit of a lead-in to it. With Medoh, we gotta take out the shield generators, I suppose.
You do that by firing bomb arrows at them. Thankfully, you don't need to worry too much about, you know, falling down to your death. I mean, I'm sure it's perfectly possible. But the way that your stamina bar works here is very kind in that once you let go of your paraglider, the second that you pull it back out, you'll have full stamina again, no matter what you've done, effectively. So you can use that to your advantage. I believe you can use the sort of the focus shot, as we saw there, which really quickly depletes your stamina meter, and then get a flight off immediately after that on the updraft. So it's really helpful.
Word of advice, don't try fly over, because you will just take damage on the shield and just bounce and bounce and bounce.
Why didn't Zelda Nippo warn us about the whole Star Trek as like phaser shields? Like, what the hell's up with this?
I know! It's like, I knew there was some sort of fancy tech going on, but like, even this, like, get real.
This one is probably the easiest pre-Ancient Beast section. I mean, the game, for good reason, in order to go to this area, just double checks to make sure that you're good on doing these slow time, bullet time arrow shots. Because these are going to be your best friend for really this whole Ancient Beast section, even including the boss. The boss is also pretty... its health can get ripped apart by just a couple bomb arrows using the bullet time shots. So this dungeon's a lot different than I'd say the other ones. The other ones, I mean, the difficulty is probably more on like the enemies and the puzzle base challenge. Medoh is very much the bow and arrow dungeon. This is the one just to make sure you're all good and safe on how to use a bow and arrow. So it can be either super easy if you're confident in your aim, or it can be a problem that, you know, even the best upgrades might prove ineffective against.
Well done, Link. That thing is history.
Can Link even hear you from there?
You can, because magic of video games / film / anything where anybody's shouting any distance, they can always hear it's fine.
The Sheikah Slate has a comms artifact on it.
Yes, actually, I do believe it does to some extent.
Ah, okay.
Well, the only reason I'm saying that is because it's the only bloody reason that Age of Calamity can work in any sort of context, considering the characters like other sides of the battlefield.
Okay, so he didn't get, like, fully shot by one of the Guardian turrets, but he got, like, nicked by it, and it's probably a good job it wasn't a full-on blast, otherwise we'd have Rivali 2.0 over it.
You head down to Medoh.
Although I don't think that Rivali was exactly turned into a roast dinner.
It's all you.
Well, did he just give me a thumbs up with his fucking wing?
Yes, he did.
Okay, I'm just checking, because my eyes were in disbelief there.
Is that how feathers work?
Who
knows?
No. Why am I getting triggered over this? Doesn't matter.
I like how he just did a whole, like, a fighter jet, like, I'm pulling back, bro, meet you at base. Like, okay, bye.
Exclusive footage of Top Gun 2.
Replace Tom Cruise with bird people.
No, Teba Cruz.
Teba Cruz. Oh man, just with the shades and the jacket. There we go. We're fixing his character as we go. Much better.
Fan art, please. Oh wait, we're a dead channel. Never mind.
Oh, there's still a little bit of fan art every now and again.
All channels on the internet are dead channels.
Not sure I'd agree with that, but agree to disagree.
I mean, all channels are dying channels, because, I mean...
Ooh, even better. I like that one.
These are our dungeons, as we have stated. They're not your typical Zelda dungeon, in that they are very much more, here is a big space, figure out how to maneuver around it to get to where you want to go. You can do things out of order in certain bits and bobs, but not all the time. But it's all very much to do with positioning the Divine Beast in the correct way to get you where you need to go. There is some flexibility, but yeah, it's all about that rather than figure out the puzzle of this specific room to get to this specific room to get this item to solve all the other puzzles.
It's kind of the bigger shift in Zelda design for the dungeons. The first, like you said, Richie, Zelda dungeons for a time we're getting more about the path, the route. Like, oh, hey, you're gonna go here and get this, and you're gonna use it to go here. The ancient beasts are designed more where you have a larger space with waypoints, and then each waypoint will usually have a puzzle or some sort of trick to figure out in order to activate, say, waypoint, and then once you activate all of them, we come back to this center area, and then we are treated to our boss fight. So you get a lot of non-linear design in that the different areas that you need to activate aren't numbered. They're not in any particular order. If you can find some weird tomfoolery to throw yourself at one of the areas and activate it without having to solve the puzzle, the game highly encourages it. But I do know that for a lot of people, this is pretty off-putting. A lot of people are really into, the whole aesthetic design and the very, I guess rigid, the rigid experience that you would see in, like a Twilight Princess or a Skyward Sword dungeon. If I were to describe how I went through the temples in Twilight Princess, the way I did is going to be pretty similar to the way Richie did it, because it's the intended way. It's kind of the only way you get through that dungeon, versus the dungeons are meant to reflect, Breath of the Wild as a whole, the whole design system as a whole, where we're supposed to get very different ways that we solve this. I got this, I did this one first, or I went over here and did that one first. So even in the dungeons, it's reflected, and it's like poetry. It rhymes.
Oh, bloody hell. Alright, so, now that we have the map, we can tilt this bugger to our content, and there's 5 things to activate. Richie, you described these Divine Beast dungeons as a puzzle box, is that correct?
That was how I described them. I'm not sure whether it is 100% the correct terminology. I would highly recommend people go and watch Game Maker's Toolkit Dungeon Keys series, because that was looking at how dungeons evolved over the course of The Legend of Zelda, and looked very much at sort of the bare bones construction of how this all worked, and that was quite exciting. Right, so Tom, where we are right now, what I want you to do is use so I think you might have already sort of unlocked where we wanted to go, but if you could just look up for me.
It's okay. We'll go through the dungeon at our own pace.
Okay, that is fine. I can't promise that I will be able to fully help with figuring out where the hell things go, but we will suss it. Effectively, what we want for this bit anyway is to make sure that we can get that big blocky thing to ram down as hard as possible on the button that's just over to the right there. So you need to make sure that you have unlocked a certain thing, and then I believe Tom is just testing out how a thing can work, and that has indeed done what we thought it might do. So I think we know how to solve this puzzle.
Okay.
Yeah, see, a lot of the... Just about every dungeon in this game is going to have a puzzle where the position of the dungeon and how that affects the dungeon is going to be part of how you solve the dungeon itself. Like, that's pretty unique to Breath of the Wild, even in all of the cool, exciting 3D Zelda dungeon designs. Usually, if you're going to manipulate the dungeon, it's going to be something like usually this Stonehead Mountain's a good example. You affect the middle pillar, and then also in that game, you kind of affect the middle area's water flow. So with these puzzles, it's more the position is part of the solution of each individual puzzle, as opposed to, oh, hey, I need to clear all this stuff out in the middle. So that's also a big shift, big change in the Breath of the Wild Zelda design versus the previous Zelda formula.
So have you clocked it yet, Tom?
I'm working on it, mate. I'm slowly going through my options.
You're so close!
It's okay, it's okay. Don't worry, don't worry. You're worrying. I can see you worrying there.
There's just worry all over you. I stink of it, dude. It's like my cologne, bro. Like, worrying. Like, traumatize yourself.
Come on now.
Yep, I do believe, ding ding ding, we've got a winner.
Nice.
That's the other thing too with these dungeons. They will heavily rely on stasis, magnesis, and bombs sometimes. I mean,
yes.
Bombs are more at your discretion. Like, bombs are as useful as you use them. Like, I feel like there are a lot of opportunities I should have been using bombs that I wasn't, that probably could have been solved easier. But that just kind of goes back to how Breath of the Wild, those are your core items. So I feel, if you're using them along in your journey, the dungeons were also where they wanted to focus the use and design of using those items. So you're going to get a lot of stasis puzzles and a lot of magnet puzzles, but they're good. That's, like I said, stasis and magnets are probably some of my favorite Zelda items now in the whole franchise.
Oh god, yeah, they're really cool.
So how do we get through here? Is this just an optional area?
Well, I don't think we can get through there just yet, because we would have to unlock something for that one, I do believe. If it is anything, I honestly cannot remember, but if it is, it's clearly locked right now.
Well, hey. Whoa, 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 whoa. Very Shadow of the Colossus-esque music in this dungeon.
I mean, yeah, Breath of the Wild doesn't have tunes, but, I mean, you could make a fair argument that, like, the sound of birds and the chickering of squirrels, like, if you wanted to be like, that's a track, that's music in Breath of the Wild, like, I'd hear that argument.
I mean, the thing is that... So, this is me going fully, like, arsehole on the whole thing.
Go.
Technically, anything of which you have sound is effectively a soundtrack, because it is the track that has sound on it. So whether it is music or diegetic sound, i.e. sound that is just naturally part of the scene, so footsteps, talking even, that is a soundtrack. However, how we mostly refer to soundtracks these days is full-on music and themes.
Is what music? How many songs from Less Than Jake do you have on this album? How many tracks from Lit do you have? I'm never not gonna reference the Digimon movie Western soundtrack. Like, it's the greatest collection of 90s songs to a 90s anime that, like, to me, it needs to be in Hall of Fames. It needs to be in museums.
I would agree. It is absolutely stellar. I do love the Digimon soundtrack, especially the Digimon the movie soundtrack. It's just so much fun. In fact, to be fair, I just love Digimon the movie. Like, for all of its flaws, it's delightful.
It's a masterpiece. I love watching it more than if I collectively were to watch the 3 movies that are the source material. Like, watch Hurricane Touchdown. It doesn't make more sense than if you just watch the Digimon movie. At least the Digimon movie, you get run around playing during that whole scene, which to me is a great improvement.
I'm coming at this from the wrong angle, I think.
I love Von Meadow's portholes that you can like look out and see the Hyrule below. Like that's good shit. Like I say, you may not get your like a temple in a volcano or a temple under the lake, but I think what designs they threw for the Divine Beast is some of the best. Like, I love all of their designs. There's not one beast where I'm like, I don't know, the camel's not that cool. No, yes, the camel is just as, if not cooler, than the other beasts.
They're all cool.
The only criticism that I personally would ever throw at the Divine Beasts is just that the internal visuals of each of them are very similar. Obviously, the creature designs and the way that they function and so on are very different, but just we spend a lot of time looking at this type of architecture. That is not an inherently bad thing, but it is one of those things where it means that they can end up feeling slightly repetitive even when they are not being repetitive.
True.
So it's not saying that it is a terrible thing, it's not saying it's a bad thing, it's just saying that it has an impact, and I personally would perhaps have preferred to see slightly more variation in the internal visual design of the Divine Beasts, but like that is just that little bit rather than anything else. Obviously, there are a lot of people who I think were really not happy at the approach of the Divine Beasts.
Not happy at a video game, you say?
I know, it's ridiculous. But I would say majority of people really look at it and just go, you know what, actually, these are great, these are really quite fun, it's just that maybe we could have had a little bit more in the visual theming, and then maybe we could have gone a little bit different.
Well, it's sort of the narrative dead end that you get at where, all the shrines were made by the Sheikah. So that's kind of the big thing too, is that the Divine Beasts separate themselves from the Sheikah temple. But narratively, they come from the same place. They're all made by the Sheikah, so the shrines end up feeling pretty similar to, like you said, the interiors of the Divine Beast. So they start to feel samey there. But again, that's sort of the dead end that they wrote themselves in. It's like, well, that's what happens when you made the same people make all your dungeons. So to be fair, though, it does offer a solution. It offers a narrative solution that you could do, like, other Divine Beasts made by not the Sheikah. Like, I know that's kind of opening a Pandora's box of, like, so you're just going to fill Hyrule with giant mecha machines? To which the correct answer is always yes.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
But to me, I feel that could be a good, interesting thing. It'd be other Divine Beasts or other giant things not made specifically by the Sheikah. And you can do that. The Divine Beasts, one weird part in the story is that the Divine Beasts at some point all get buried, and then they get uncovered by, the Zelda from 1,000 years ago. but right before Age of Calamity and all that. So the Divine Beasts have been used before, even before this story. But there's a point where, there was just so much peace that all the Divine Beasts get buried. So that opens it up to you can have them find more other ones, different ones. And I feel then that can give you the variation where, you'd get different looking interiors because they won't all be made by the same people who made the trials all over the map. So you could use that, you could do something like that. But no, I agree with you, Richie, that it's a very specific criticism where it's like the interiors are what feels samey, because like the exteriors and a lot of these, the way that you solve these puzzles are very different between the different beasts.
And I think that would really go a long way to solving a lot of what people have complained about with this, because it is a design thing. Because half the reason that people remember most of the dungeons in various Zelda games is because of how they looked. We remember the water temple. Well, the water temple was a bad idea, because the reason we remember the water temple is because it gave most of us hell, because it's a bit...
We remember the trauma. All of us.
Yes, I mean, the water temple is probably a good example of effectively how the Divine Beasts work, in that it's that same thing of you have one location that you can manipulate in different ways to get to different areas. It's just that water temple, you had to go to specific points to change it to specific levels, whereas in Breath of the Wild, you always have access to the controls in order to do what you need to do. But the point I was trying to make was that you've got things like the Ancient Cistern in Skyward Sword, obviously you've got the Lava Temple, you've got the Ice Manor in Twilight Princess. You've got a whole bunch of locations that we remember because of the way that they look and were designed, not necessarily because of the puzzles that were within them.
You have to remember basically what Medoh is strictly on, well, one, it's design. So that's why all the beasts have these striking design. That's why you can't forget like the camo one versus the bird one. Like, just, I know I'm kind of saying like as a joke, but to be fair, that's kind of how it gets internalized in most people's memory. You'll remember it more as the bird one, the lizard one, the elephant one, because like you said, you're not going to have those different designs. I mean, I could maybe throw in, well, the bird one had those wind puzzles, remember? And that could maybe like spur about other stuff. But like you said, it's kind of purely on the puzzles, and it's really difficult to, share a story with someone on solving a puzzle. Especially when these are non-linear, open-ended, here's how I solved it, and you're like, which one? I solved it this way. Like, you kind of almost have to explore the conversation itself to even figure out what part of what Divine Beast you're even trying to talk to your friends about. Just to let y'all know, it's even affected how you could like guide a friend to solve the dungeon as well too. It's so open-ended that it's open. Anyone can do whatever they want.
Yeah, pretty much. It's really cool, but also really quite terrifying.
Man, limitless possibilities in future really is the scariest thing.
Now, I want to say that final terminal, we've got to do a bit more with the bombs to get to.
I was thinking it was on his nose, personally.
Well, no, but you can see it on the map.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Trusty map.
Trust in the map. Like, obviously, open-ended game gives you a whole bunch of different areas you can go, but thankfully, in the puzzle dungeon, it does give you a good big glowy red point of, this is where a thing is that you need to go to.
Okay, that's fine.
Gotta love a map. I'm still shocked that the first game's map was just a big black square. Like, no references. No, it just lets you know if you were in the south, the north, east, or west, but you have no freaking clue where you are. I love that now we have like actual helpful, useful 3D maps. Like, that's the other thing too with these dungeons, that you have to navigate a 3D map, which I know for some people that can be another tricky bit of it all, but I think it's fine.
Oh yeah.
When we were outside on the top, I wanted to also mention, just with the designs, just that distinct, again, of interior versus the exterior design of these beasts, is that I love the outside of Medoh with all the grass and all the ruins on him, because it reminds me, first of all, of City in the Sky in Twilight Princess.
Yeah, totally fair.
So I see just, again, those references and those callbacks to certain themes in the Zelda franchise. And then, of course, names have meaning in Zelda, so Medoh, I do like how that is kind of sort of a reference to Miss Medley, Miss Rito Sage herself, so I do love how there's always that whenever they bring in the new characters, like when they brought in the new dragons, and when they brought in the new regions, it's still calling back to at least those old names.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, it'll never be as hardcore as naming all the sages the same names as the random towns in Zelda 2. Like, that to me is still probably one of the most hardcore references to me. And I know it's because I played Ocarina of Time first, so to me it's like, whoa, the towns are just all the sages, but like, bro, to just be like, nope, the towns in Zelda 2. Go play Zelda 2, go read their names. Like, it's almost like Nintendo's demanding you play them.
Okay, so how am I going to get this sucker over to me?
I mean, maybe, you know, tilt a bit further?
Okay. There he goes.
Can you just imagine Medoh just above Hyrule, just randomly going left and right and left and right?
Right, you go there.
Mm-hmm.
Breath of the Wild 2 better have more pinball, I swear.
Not sure if one, fam. Although I am thinking of the table, honestly, where I have to use the motion controls, and maybe I'm just projecting slightly.
I have to say, it'll be fun to see if we run into another one of those on this journey, because obviously there are so many different shrines, and there are definitely at least a few of that type. So it's going to be a case of seeing, are we going to be lucky and completely avoid it for the rest of our journey, or are we going to run into literally all of the ones of that type?
Oh no. Well, we can walk out of them if we want, because really there's enough of the battle shrines that when we're at the end of the game that we can do the whole, you know, classic Metroid Zelda, like backtrack OP sweep of the map, which to me I love when you get to that point in the game where you're just so strong that you just swat everything away to clean out all the little bits that you missed on your quest.
Alright, that's the main thing of the dungeon done, guys. Told you it was a good one to start with, so let's go fix this sucker.
Indeed. I have the feeling that we're going to have a boss fight before the end of this, because while there is a lot of difference in terms of how this has been structured as a dungeon, of course it's still got a boss fight at the end of it. Why would it not?
Oh, Richie, you're just paranoid.
Are you going to tell me that a boss is just going to show up, it's going to be all spooky and full of malice, and like might even possibly have a big glowing eye? Like, come on, like, this isn't a game of cliches.
With every second that passes, I'm feeling a little less sure of my opinion here. Oh, darn.
Big glowing eye is so important, they had to change Majora's mask to make sure it had big glowing eyes.
Ugh. No thanks, I'm good. Yeah, with Blight Ganon, he's fucking huge.
Good luck. That thing
He's
is
got
one
a
of
gun.
Garen's own, and it plays
He
dirt.
wields a gun.
Defeated me 100 years
For his neutral
ago.
special,
Only because
when
I
Blight
was
Ganon kills Rivali.
Avenge me, Link.
Technically, it's an arm cannon, not a gun, but same difference.
Richie, I'm an American. Let me tell you, let me gunsplain you here. It's a gun.
What are you doing, love? What are you doing? Let's go.
Bosses are also pretty interesting in this game because you can do the beast last after you get all these other quests. They're all super weak to the Master Sword because they come of Ganon. So boss fights can vary in difficulty depending on what you have in stock, what you know about the bosses. Hell, food. Food can be like the biggest factor on how difficult or how easy a boss fight can go in Breath of the Wild. The bosses in this game are pretty cool. I'm glad that they designed them this way versus, I mean, I was kind of being snooty, but really Majora's Mask 3D revealed a mentality that I wasn't really cool with in Zelda. Of, you know, that Zelda boss fights were turning into this, solve this puzzle and you'll get 5 seconds of hitting time. Alright, you got your hitting time, now solve this puzzle so you can get your hitting time back. It's like, no, I want to, like, fight an enemy. Like, it's cool when the boss fights have those moments where they're vulnerable, when they're weak, but the boss fights were turning into puzzles themselves almost exclusively, where it's like, oh no, it's not an actual fight anymore.
While there is certainly space and time for that type of boss fight, it becomes a problem when all of the fights become that type of boss fight. Because then, you know, you lose your variety. And really that's what Zelda has always thrived on. It's variety.
Nice.
Bomb arrows. Like, they were upset that they couldn't do bomb arrows the first couple times in Zelda games, that they made, again, like wind temples. They are never going to miss an opportunity again to do them in every Zelda game and make it the best part of a Zelda game.
Oh, why did they allow bomb arrows in this game? Ah, damn them!
Even the bosses in this game get like a great treatment from Age of Calamities, because even these guys got like a whole flesh, which is so cool, especially since, you know, design-wise they're more similar than, say, the Majora's Mask bosses. But could you imagine if like Odwalla and Goat got the Age of Calamity like a rematched?
That would be pretty cool.
Improvement or something. I think that'd be really nice. The Zelda bosses are kind of their own little nugget of Zelda ideas that they could explore as well.
Didn't really talk about it much there, but I would say that the Blights suffer from exactly the same problem as the Divine Beast dungeons, in that while they all fight relatively differently, in the way that you sort of have to tackle them is all slightly different, they all suffer from looking pretty much exactly the same.
It's a design. Oh no.
And so while they work differently, you sort of feel like you're fighting the same boss fight over and over again, as if the game only has like 4 different bosses. It's not the case, but it's how it feels because of how it looks. And it's not saying it's wrong, it's just saying that there is a reason why you might not necessarily be feeling as much love toward it as you probably could or should be. But hey, look, it's the ghost of Rivali.
Oh, bloody hell.
Still can't get away from him even now.
Even in death, he still knocks us. Look, I saved you from, like, eternal torment. You could be thankful a little bit.
Don't preen yourself just for doing your job.
I'll go pluck yourself.
How do you suppose you've proven your value as a warrior?
I think it is kind of neat how they give the champions this sort of moment of, after 1,000 years of failure, it's not like heavy-handed, but these characters do feel a little bit different. Like Rivali feels a bit more subdued, and that arrogance after, you know, getting murdered.
I mean, to be fair, you probably too would also have at least a little bit of
I'd be less of a dick if I was dead is a hell of a self-improvement slogan.
Yeah, it's just like you'd probably have that as well if you died.
Feel free to thank me now.
Oh, I love you, you arrogant prick. Oh, by the way, I cast a disintegrate spell on you. Have fun, fucker.
Your job is far from finished, you know.
Then Link whips out his staff and then he performs ascending, and all of the champions' Fireflies get to go back to the far plane.
The princess has been waiting an awfully long time.
I finally beat Final Fantasy X and X-2 after so many years last year. I was so proud of myself.
Last year?
Yeah, I had those games for decades. Well, at least over a decade, and I'd never beaten them because I got stuck numerous times in Final Fantasy X because I was a child.
I know, like, 2020 was only about a week ago at the time of this recording, but if you're gonna brag, make it more recent, darling.
I'm playing Lord of the Rings The Third Age and having fun with it and gotten much further than I did when I played it when I was a child, so that's positive.
You are enjoying Vidya, and that is good enough for me.
Is that the Lord of the Rings Final Fantasy X game?
Yes, it is.
Oh my god.
Okay. Literally, like, no shame. It's been 20 years. Like, if you wanted to rip off Final Fantasy X, you couldn't have picked a better game to rip off. But like, it's a Lord of the Rings mod of Final Fantasy X.
Basically, with the other fellowship. It's not even with the actual fellowship, it's with other characters. But yay, Medoh is saved and an absolute badass because he's perched and firing a laser at the castle.
Charging my chicken beam.
Well, that's just the targeting reticle more than anything. He hasn't actually fired yet.
It's still a laser.
Give him everything.
That's a laser point. Whatever, alright? It's a gigantic fucking monolith perching on a mountain that should snap beneath its weight, but it's not for some reason.
If y'all were cats, you'd know the difference between a laser pointer and a reticle. Man, look at him just perched on there. Like, that's also really great imagery there as well too. Like, I know it's kind of, we mentioned that, oh no, Rito Village is small because it's on this one little rock, but then the giant robot bird perches on the rock city and you're like, never mind, you guys know what you're doing.
Oh, even in death, he still proclaims that our skill is down to luck and not proficiency.
Well, I mean, considering we somehow miraculously survived getting murdered all that time ago to fight another day, I mean, that was definitely not skill, because if it was skill, we would have won. So there's definitely some luck involved, but everything that Link does pretty much from when he awakens is mostly skill, with quite a lot of luck involved as well, but mostly skill.
So, we've got some choices to make now, guys. Do you want to go up into the mountains, or should we head towards the next Divine Beast?
I mean, since we're here, why don't we go for that mountain quest?
Okay.
I mean, why not? I don't see any harm in it. Unless there's a line and we're gonna get murdered, but hey.